back to the channel, everybody. Today we're going to talk about a hot topic, and that is investing in tax-free states. Something that George and I have done for a good number of years. But I think it's important that we really break down the numbers for you. So we're going to compare a few states. We're going to compare, you want to do Texas, California, and Georgia? All right, so we're going to break those down for you so you can really have an idea of what the true numbers look like. So, George, let's do this. Let's do a $2 million property in California and break it down across those three states.
Okay.
And what the true numbers really look like.
Absolutely.
And at the end, which one's the best investment?
Absolutely. So let's actually talk about this a little bit because
Okay.
what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the cap rates because each geographic area has different cap rates of properties that are selling. Now, this will often offset or not offset, but it accommodates the property tax already because you're looking at net operating income, so it's already built into that. So in California, we have some of the lowest tax or cap rates, and some of the highest tax rates. So we have
the highest tax rate.
Well, yes, it actually is the highest for income tax. It's 13.3%. So when we look at that, and let's say we have a property that we're purchasing, and we're purchasing a $2 million property at a 5 cap, that gives us $100,000 of gross income. Now, when you take into account the 13.3% tax rate, income tax rate, your effective income after taxes is going to be about $86,700. Compare that to the other end of the spectrum. Let's call it Texas.
Okay.
So in Texas, you're probably looking about a 50 basis points higher in the cap rates for most properties, so about 5.5 cap. So a $2 million property is going to generate $110,000 gross. Now, with that $110,000 gross, that's actually, there's no income tax, so that's actually going to be your effective net income.
Yep.
Or net operating
But your
income.
property taxes are a lot higher.
Property taxes are higher, but the cap rate takes that into consideration. What you have to remember, though, is that if you live in California, you're still going to have to pay California income tax.
Yeah.
So that $110,000 effective is really closer to about $93,000 overall. So it sounds good, though, right? It's better than California now. Let's talk about Georgia now.
Okay.
Georgia has a lower income tax rate. Let's call it 4% at the high end. Starts at 1, goes to 4%. So we're always talking about the higher end. Same with California.
And their property taxes are less than Texas, right?
Their property taxes are less than Texas as well.
Okay.
But let's call it a 5.75 cap for Georgia right now, about 25 basis points higher. Now, immediately, most people think income tax, 4% income tax. I'm going to make less money.
Right.
But the cap rate really takes that into account because there's less demand in states that have income tax, so there's less investors that are going after it.
That's a good point.
So you now have $115,000 gross. With the 4% tax, it's about $110,400, higher than what it would be in Texas if it was just a straight cap rate. And then if you are a resident of California, you take that into account as well, it's still going to be about a little bit over $93,000 or just above by about $400 off Texas. So even though it has an income tax, because of the cap rate and the differences in the regionality, you actually have a better return in the property in Georgia.
Okay. That's your favorite property?
Well, it's for income purposes, absolutely, but I'm extremely location driven, as you know.
Yeah.
So I delve into that location and do all the metrics, make sure and all the real estate fundamentals.
I was sure you were going to say Texas.
Well, I do like Texas as well, but if it's straight income, and realistically speaking, because there's no income tax in Texas, the minor change, the $400 or $500 extra income for a Georgia property, it may be better just to stick with Texas, where you know that they're not going to really, if the changes, they're not going to add income tax, but Georgia may increase income tax rates.
I think they're going to a flat tax here.
They've been talking about that. I know they're
24?
talking about that for the corporate side, and that's going to be 15%.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something you really want to take a look at. So it looks like the winner today is Atlanta, Georgia, or Georgia, that is. I just call Georgia Atlanta. I don't know why that is. But now let's talk quickly about utilities in these states. Now, California is pretty low utilities.
California,
compared to Texas.
Compared to Texas, utilities are low. I mean, I think the water cost is probably higher, but overall, utility use is a lot lower because you also have, you're not looking at larger grounds, but you're also not using air conditioning quite a bit. You know, most of California doesn't have air conditioning
Right.
in the apartment buildings because we have a nice climate. So
Well,
because
the
of that,
A properties do.
yeah,
The
the Class A
Class
properties,
C,
right?
yeah.
But the majority of the properties
Right.
that we're looking at, so because of that, you have lower utility costs.
Right.
Now there are other expenses that you do have to take into consideration as well. And you know, if you're looking at doing a lot of rehab and repair work, sales tax may play a factor in that as well. Especially if you buy a property in a C neighborhood that has ongoing maintenance and a lot of maintenance, then you can you may have to account for that. You know, you have sales tax in California again. Some of the highest sales tax. State tax is 7.25%.
Right.
However, some cities also add their own sales tax on top of that, bringing that upwards of 10%, or
Right.
higher than 10% actually. 10.25, I think, is the highest sales tax rate in California over in the city of Santa Monica.
Yeah.
Compare that to Texas, where you have a sales tax rate of about 6.25% flat, and then you know Georgia again, it's right in that grouping as well.
Same as Texas.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's something you have to take a look at for. But well, thank you, George.
absolutely.
Appreciate it. For those of you watching, make sure you give us a like, and if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe.